Hey everybody, welcome to my January 2021 Plan With Me video. And this month's theme, I'm going to be doing a Northern Lights theme. So I'll be using a lot of watercolors and kind of testing out my bullet journal, as it's the first time I've ever had an Archer and Olive. So I wanted to see how it could really handle different watercolors and techniques. So I started off by putting my journal at a slant so that I could kind of let the paint run down, and then I'm doing a wet on wet technique, which kind of ended up not as nice as I liked, but I will just keep going with it because that is what we do here. So what I'm doing here is just putting a few different colors wet on the page, which is also wet, and hoping that they'll streak down, but they didn't really do that, so I just went in with a smaller brush to help pull the color down. And I just keep doing this and layering on more colors until I get the look that I'm kind of going for. So just adding a bit more saturated color and pulling it down while still having the book slanted to kind of help pull that color down as well. So what I found with the Archer and Olive notebook is it just doesn't work that well for the wet on wet technique. I mean, most bullet journals aren't meant for that anyway, but I wanted to try it out and see where it would take me. I'm not totally loving it just because it was a lot harder to blend the colors in the way that I wanted because they would dry a lot faster on the page. So what I would suggest instead would be to just put the watercolor on a separate watercolor paper, especially for using techniques that are more blendable and require a lot more water like this one. That way you can just cut it out and glue it into your book, or I've also seen people scan it in, print it, and then put it in their book if they don't want it to be super, super thick. So after my little experiment did not turn out the way I wanted to, I did end up switching to a watercolor paper. So for my actual cover part, I'm just, again, going over the paper with water to make sure it's really, really, really wet. And then I'll be adding on my colors wet as well. And immediately you can already see the difference in just how the paint spreads, how it blends out. And then I realized I probably should have it tilting down for what I wanted to do, so I did that and just kept going and blending the colors as I wanted to, and just much more happy with the results I was getting. So for anybody wondering, this is the Koi watercolor set that I'm using. I found it's a really nice set for beginners. I just got it from my local craft store, but I think you can also get it on Amazon, and most craft stores will carry it as well. I believe mine is the 24 color palette. After my sky had dried, I just went in and made a very light horizon so I could start drawing in my trees. For the trees, I'm just using a darker shade of blue than I used in the sky, but just kind of blobbing it on to make a rough shape of trees, and then I'll be making them darker and a little bit more defined as I come closer to the base of the painting and just kind of going from there, leaving a tiny bit of a path to put the trees around just to add a little bit more dimension. So as I get closer to the front of the painting, I start to add a little bit more definition to the trees, a little bit more kind of just flicking the ends out so they look more like what you would imagine pine trees would look like. But again, it's still pretty loose. I'm just relaxing and doing it, and you don't have to really be too detail oriented on this, which is what I like. And then here and there, I'd add just a slightly darker tree to the background, kind of muddled up trees, just again, to add a bit more definition and because I felt like it. Finally, I just added a little bit of shading to the pathway, just so it wasn't a complete like stark white against the rest of the painting, and just blend it in a little bit better with everything. Now I'm just going in with my pearlescent white from Fine Tech Paints and just using another brush and my ruler to flick on some snow and highlights onto the painting. You can also use a white gouache, but I did not have mine handy, so I used the shimmery one because it also added a little bit more definition as well. Moving back to the other side of my cover page, I'm just drawing in a small calendar to the side on top of the painting that we did earlier. And I don't really need a big full-size calendar this month because I am still in lockdown and do not have very many plans to do anything. So I'm just keeping it pretty small and simple, and we'll be writing in relevant dates underneath. then went in with a gold marker to put in the days of the week and add a little bit of sparkle to everything. Once my painting was dry, I just cut it out in the circle shape that I had planned and proceeded to use some sticky glue tape to glue it into my journal. I guess it wasn't as dry as I thought because a little bit of the paint transferred to my calendar side, so I tried to remove it with my eraser, which also didn't work, so I used a little bit of water just to soak up that little bit of paint. And then I took my gold pen again and went over the painting just to write in January, and then I followed that up with the gold paint from my Finetech paints to kind of add a little bit more definition to each of the gold letters. For the next pages, I'm doing my habit trackers, my Animal Crossing tracker, and my brain dump page, and I'm just using a light green Mildliner as well as a similar colored Fineliner to do my headers, and then I'll be using my stamps as usual. So I realized while doing my Animal Crossing tracker that I am slowly running out of things to follow and track, as I'm almost at the end of catching all the bugs, the fish, and sea creatures. So I have my photos that I'm writing in, and this time I did spell Anka's name correctly. I know in my December video I got a little distracted and her name went somewhere that I was not even thinking about. So this time around I did get it right, and now I'm starting to try and figure out what else I should be tracking in the game. Is there anybody else here that does play that, and what are you currently working to get in the game? Let me know below in the comments. So for my brain dump page, I kept it pretty simple. I did the wet on wet a little bit again this time around, but this time I only did 2 streaks of color. So I grabbed some color on either side of my brush and then just streaked that down on either side and wrote brain dump along the top. And that's pretty much it. I left that page pretty simple just because it's more for just writing down my thoughts or anything that I need to remember in that month. And of course, my writing sideways as always. Let me know in the comments if you are part of the sideways writing club, as I definitely am, because if I try to write straight across page, my writing goes right up to the right-hand corner. And this next page is my weekly spread, and I'm just doing my typical weekly, which consists of my calendar boxes at the top of the page, followed by my to-do lists, my meal prep, and any coming up events. So for this weekly, I'm not doing it in the exact same way, as I'm not having it separated between personal and work, since currently my workplace is shut down due to the lockdown. And so because of that, I just have one to-do list for that week instead of the 2. So I did go in with that light green Mildliner again to write in week 1, but then I realized I really didn't like how it turned out. So I just covered it with some washi tape and just wrote week 1 in a regular way beside that, just because I wasn't loving it, and you know, that's okay. Then on the next page, I just put my budget as well as notes, just because I'm not at work, so I don't need to really worry about keeping track of my clients, but I do still need to make sure I'm keeping up with my budget. Just with everything going on, I want to make sure that we're still on track for all of our goals. Then I just added a little bit of marker decoration and lines to tie everything back into the Northern Lights theme. So I'm just using 3 different colors. I'm using that light green, a pastel purple, and a light blue. And then I'll be covering those with more of those little diamond glitter sparkle things, just to give the Northern Lights kind of aesthetic some more. I did make another page for my lockdown to-do list, which would cover the overall month. However, I did not include that footage, but it's just a page for a list. So that is my January 2021 setup. Hope you enjoyed it, and for more videos, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. See you soon.